Welcome to the Explainer. Today, we're diving into a place that basically exists entirely in the shadows. We're focusing on a facility shrouded in such intense, extreme secrecy that the regime that built it literally denies it even exists. We're talking about North Korea's prison camps, and specifically, the incredibly grim, heavily fortified reality of Camp 14. Now, right off the bat, you need to know this isn't just your standard political prison. Even within the already brutal framework of North Korea's penal system, Camp 14 is a total anomaly. It's a maximum security control zone meant for the most severe, quote-unquote, enemies of the state. It's a place where human rights, well, they don't just fail to exist, they are systematically dismantled. So today, we're going to examine exactly how this hidden system operates, the chilling life cycle of the people trapped inside, and ultimately, the completely extraordinary story of the one guy who managed to do what this black box was explicitly engineered to prevent.
Escape is considered impossible. In almost any other context, when we hear the word impossible, we usually just think of it as a challenge, right? Like a really difficult hurdle, or maybe a statistical improbability. But inside the heavily guarded, electrified perimeter of Camp 14, impossible is definitely not hyperbole. It's literally the foundational blueprint of the place. The entire camp is engineered both geographically and structurally to ensure utter hopelessness. Once you're inside, the very concept of leaving is completely erased. It's an environment built purely on absolute permanent containment. There are zero release mechanisms, zero legal appeals, and absolutely no hope for a reduced sentence. The architecture of the camp itself is basically designed to make the outside world seem like a complete myth.
Okay, let's dive into this contrast for a second. Picture an absolute, unbridgeable void. On one side, you've got the secretive, brutal, deadly reality of Camp 14, and on the other side, an outside world that the prisoners literally don't even know exists. Think about the gravity of that. The defining characteristic of this camp isn't just the physical abuse, although that's horrific, it's the absolute, weaponized isolation. Prisoners here never see the outside world. None of it. They have no concept of modern society, no clue about global events, and absolutely zero context for life beyond the fences. It's a completely hidden reality. To them, the boundaries of the camp are the boundaries of the entire universe. This deliberate, extreme sensory deprivation creates a psychological black box where the outside world isn't just out of reach, it's entirely unseen and unknown.
Let's move on to Part 1, the horrors of Camp 14.
To truly grasp the sheer magnitude of breaking out of this place, we really have to understand the specific, grim reality of what it actually means to be a prisoner here. Again, this is not a normal penitentiary. This facility operates on a completely different, horrifying paradigm built around a concept known as generational punishment. Let's break down this life cycle. First, born in the camp. Honestly, this is perhaps the most staggering insight from our sources. Camp 14 isn't just a place you're sent to for committing a crime. It's a place where human beings begin their lives. Because of a strict policy that punishes up to 3 generations of a family for a single perceived political crime, kids are quite literally born as political prisoners. They grow up knowing absolutely nothing but the camp. Second stage, tortured. The source material is very explicit about the relentless, brutal conditions defining their daily existence. Malnutrition is weaponized, the labor is incredibly grueling and often fatal, and physical abuse is just standard operating procedure right from early childhood. And third, die in the camp. There's no release date, ever. The life cycle is just a closed loop, perfectly sealed off from the rest of humanity. You're born into it, you suffer through it, and it ends there. And for decades, this cycle went totally unbroken.
Which brings us to Part 2, the anomaly, breaking the ultimate rule. In any system designed to be perfectly sealed, a single anomaly changes absolutely everything. Out of all the thousands of people born into this brutal closed loop, people who endured those horrors and ultimately died without ever seeing the outside world, this number represents the only known escape. Just one man, a single data point proving that the impossible prison break actually happened. When you stop and consider that Camp 14 has been operating for decades, literally longer than the Soviet gulags even existed, the fact that only one person born inside has ever successfully escaped and lived to tell the tale, that's a staggering testament to the camp's devastating efficiency. But this one man shattered the perfect record of a system designed to be a total black hole.
So the incredibly obvious question here is how? How on earth does someone execute a prison break from a place they were born into, going up against guards with automatic weapons, vicious patrol dogs, and a lethal high-voltage electric fence? Let's really get into the mechanics of this escape, because they are just as harrowing as the camp itself. It wasn't some carefully plotted, high-tech Hollywood heist, right? It was a desperate, incredibly tragic convergence of timing and raw survival instinct. Step 1 was just enduring the relentless horror of the place, maintaining any will to live when the entire environment is literally designed to break you. But the actual execution of the break, that came down to one freezing night in the deep snow. He didn't actually attempt this alone at first. He planned the escape with an older prisoner, a guy who had actually lived in the outside world and had secretly told him these unimaginable stories of abundant food and freedom. So they make this desperate, terrifying run for the perimeter in the pitch dark, and they reach the lethal high-voltage fence. The older prisoner goes first, trying to slip through the wires, but he's electrocuted instantly. And this right here is the tragic, unbelievable reality of how the escape actually succeeded. His companion's body grounded the electrical current. In a split second, realizing this was literally his only chance, the surviving man used the lifeless body of his friend as a human shield to crawl over the sparking wires. He suffered severe, terrible burns to his legs, but the current was absorbed just enough for him to slip through. He survived the fence, he survived the brutal winter landscape, and he miraculously slipped into China, completing the absolutely impossible.
And that brings us to the profound aftermath of this singular, crazy event. What we're looking at is, yes, ultimately a story of unimaginable horror and unbelievable survival. But it's also so much more than that. It is one of the most critical intelligence breakthroughs of the modern era. See, when this man made it to the outside world, he didn't just break the impossible rule of Camp 14. He cracked wide open a black box that the North Korean regime had kept perfectly sealed for over half a century. His escape gave the international community its very first eyewitness account from someone actually born inside this maximum security zone. He drew detailed maps entirely from memory, exposed the horrifying generational punishment system, and forcefully broke the regime's narrative. He took a system of perfect, silent oppression and just dragged it kicking and screaming into the glaring light of global awareness.
So one man broke the impossible rule. Through unbelievable tragedy, unthinkable hardship, and just pure, raw, sheer will, he proved that the ultimate closed loop could actually be shattered. But his survival leaves us with a really chilling, glaring question. What about the untold thousands who are still trapped inside that brutal life cycle today? Because while he managed to cross that electrified perimeter, an entire population remains locked behind it right now, completely hidden away from the world, enduring those exact same horrors as we speak. It's a profound, heavy thought, and it really challenges us to remember the dark realities operating in the deep shadows of our world. Thanks so much for joining this explainer. Keep questioning the world around you, and we'll see you next time.